Okay, this video I'm gonna kind of recap here. Um, there's no real way I could ever convey the kind of sense of hopelessness I had when I first started out, um, and the kind of happiness that I feel now. Um, but I can say that um, without God in my life, this is gonna hurt some people. I know. Bear with me. Without God in my life, I would not be here. I would not be happy. I would probably be dead. And that sounds pretty harsh, but it's true. Reality is harsh, so get over it. But I can kind of tell you specific memories and what happened and how maybe you could see how I felt. Okay, so there was this one time my mother was taking me somewhere. This is when I was really young, and I lived with my mother, and my parents had already divorced. Um, so she's taking me somewhere. I don't know where she's taking me, but I'm going somewhere. So um, she stops by this really dirty, grungy, nasty-looking house. I mean, it was like trailer trash, except the two-story house version. It was really bad. And she stops and she says, "Here, hang out with these little kids in the front yard." And I was a little kid too, so it's like we were all the same age. There were two guys, and they were brothers, and then there was a little girl. And they were making fun of the little girl, like throwing dirt clots and stuff at her. Um, so I look at them, and I'm a little kid, and I I go up to the little girl and I'm like, I'm gonna be on your side because at this point I thought it was like a game or something. I look back on it now, I realize they were throwing dirt clots at her to be mean. Um, but I didn't realize that then. I thought it was a game because I was a little younger than they were, to be quite honest. So I go, I'll be on your side. I'll help you out. So she's hiding behind a bush in the corner of the lot where there's a big wooden picket fence, and they've got her trapped there. So I run up to her and I tell her that, and I start picking up dirt clots and throwing them like mad at the boys. And um, what wasn't realized is I used to play baseball. I still can pitch a 45 mile per hour ball right on the dot almost every time, which isn't too good considering I of my age and everything, but it's pretty good considering I haven't played baseball in about 9, 10 years, maybe 11 years. Um, but I was throwing dirt clots at them, and I was hitting them in the head and the face because they were throwing them at me. They were hitting me in the head. So I was like, okay, if that's the way you want to play it, fine. So I'm throwing it at them, and I'm hitting them in the head and stuff. And they finally just leave her alone. Like, I don't want to play anymore. You're cheating, and they leave her alone. And I remember it because it was really um, it meant a lot to me because the little girl didn't even know me, and I didn't know the little girl from anyone else on this planet. And she came up to me after I had beaten him off, beat back the hunt or whatever. And she gave me a kiss on the cheek, and that meant a lot to me as a little kid because it didn't happen to me a lot, to be quite frank. My grandmother incidentally had driven by and saw that and did nothing. I mean, I was just kind of like, you saw that and you did nothing. That's pretty nice of you. Um, but I was kind of appalled. But anyway, that house that I was at was the house of a drug dealer or someone who sold drugs. And I know because I went and met the guy later on, and I could tell just from the way he looked and the way he acted that he was not a nice person. Um, so that really impacted my life. That same day, I went to my mother's first husband's job. He was a plumber, and he was working at the time, so she stops by. This guy has no relation to me. He's not my dad. He's not my stepdad. My father was my mother's second marriage. Um, he was her first marriage, so no relations. So she pulls up and she's like, "Hey, this is Ernie, my first husband." And I'm like, "Oh, hey Ernie." And he looks at me, and as soon as I look at him, I looked right into his eyes. And time kind of did this really weird thing where it kind of like slowed down just a little bit. And when I looked into his eyes, I didn't see really happiness. I didn't see pain. Um, what I saw was fear. And at the time, I didn't understand it because I was a little kid and I didn't know what drugs were. But now I look back on it, and now I can look at him, and he's pretty much a walking vegetable. He's a walking zombie. He only recognizes me, my older sister, who is his daughter, and my mom, and that's it. He doesn't recognize anyone else. He doesn't recognize his own mother. His mother puts his clothes on, helps him use the bathroom, helps him eat. He doesn't remember names. He doesn't remember faces. Well, I mean, aside from my his immediate family's face, or at one point anyway. Um, the point being, he was like a zombie, and you know why? Because when my mother stopped doing drugs, he did not stop, and he had, say, 7 strokes, and he's about 30. He was 39 at the time. Now he's like 53 or so, and he's brain dead. And for a guy to have 7 strokes when he's turning 40 is just ridiculous. And that's why I saw that fear in his eyes, because I was like, oh man, he knows he's going to die. He knows he's going to die, and he doesn't have anyone to help him. Because really, at that point, no one could help him. He was addicted to it. And I say that because someone did help my mother. And I'm convinced of this, because if you go back, you'll see that I prayed, and at the time I prayed, she came out of the coma, right as I walked into the room. So, if you watch the other videos, you'll know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so, if he had had that same help my mother had, just that divine push in the right direction, he would still be an average functioning human being today. And he didn't have that push in the right direction. He didn't have that. And he's not really there anymore, if you know what I mean. He's not there. And now he's suffering because he didn't have that help, because he didn't seek it out. That's my point. If he would have searched for God, he probably wouldn't be in the situation he's in, because God requires you to say, I'm going to set my mind to doing the right thing, not something like I'm going to set my mind to being racist. God doesn't do that. That's not justified in the Bible. I mean, you can say, yeah, I was justified, and I can take the scripture of the Bible and tell you, based on the scripture, that no, it's not justified. Okay, so don't go there. I don't want to debate. I'm just saying. Anyway, had he done that, and had he set his mind to love and tolerance, then he wouldn't be in the situation he was in. He would have dedicated himself to fixing his problems, not just being afraid of them. And that's what happened with me. That's what happened with my mother. That's what happened with my father. Pretty much everyone in my immediate family, that's happened to them. I wouldn't be alive if that weren't true. My grandparents, all of them, would not be alive if that weren't true. My father probably wouldn't be alive. My mother certainly wouldn't. I mean, it's just amazing when you think about the way God works in people's lives, and no one even recognizes it. People tell me, well, show me evidence for God. And here I am. I'm evidence of God, because I'm alive. And if it weren't for Him, I wouldn't be alive. And that's not a myth. That's a fact. That's like black and white. If you knew me and you had known me 5 years ago, you wouldn't recognize me. You wouldn't recognize me because I'm a totally different person because of God. It's not because I said, oh, I'm going to do right now. It's because I saw that God was right and I was wrong. And I saw that I needed to change to do something right. And I still mess up a lot, but I try. And I guess that's what counts. But, I mean, honestly, this is the video you've all been waiting for if you're, an atheist trying to argue with me. You can take literary theory, you can take scientific theory, you can take the greatest and best logic, you can take reason, you can take whatever you want and try and explain away Christianity to people. But the fact of the matter is that some people take it for granted. And that is the point. That is why I'm on here. That is why there are many people who are autistic, many people who have been raped, many people who are unfortunate, many people who have suffered all of their lives, who are on here arguing with atheists, debating with atheists, because we don't take it for granted. I don't take it for granted. I don't take God's love for granted. I know that it helps people because I've seen many people that it's helped. And regardless of all these stupid theories about how it affects society, it doesn't affect society. People affect society in that negative way because God is not a negative person. He would never do something like that unless it was forced upon him. And if you want to question me on that point, I'll ask you this. Who was the first being in the Bible to kill? Simple question, right? Who was the first being? Well, it wasn't God. It wasn't Satan. It wasn't angels. It wasn't animals. It was Cain. It was a human being. God didn't start the killing. That was not God. That was us. That was human beings. Anyway, I'm getting on a rant. I better stop. There are many times when I just wish that people would sit with me and just talk with me, just to be friends, just to be casual and to be nice. And the only people that I can say did that were maybe 4 people. Maybe 4 people. And that's tops. Maybe 4 people, 5, 6, something like that. And I can tell you honestly, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that all of them were Christian. Okay? Just saying. In this high school, when I went to high school, I see atheists and I see Christians, and there's a marked difference. There is. Because Christians don't take that stuff for granted. They don't take their morality for granted. They don't say, well, I'll just make up my own. They know that there is a certain way to do things, and they know that if they don't do things that way, things will happen that aren't good. And atheists don't quite recognize that. They recognize that A, Christianity is bad, and B, usually government is bad. And they don't realize that it exists for a reason. I'm not going to argue government, okay? That's a lost cause. But I'm going to tell you that when I see atheists and I see Christians, atheists are much more prone to just talk about something totally disgusting, and Christians won't do that. And that's from personal experience. I've observed it many times. I don't say anything to them. I just go on my way because I don't judge people. But they still do it. And what I've noticed is that it does affect society in an ironic kind of way, and that anyone who says God doesn't exist should recognize that fact. It's counterculture, culture movement, and it's not right. Anyway, I'm going now.